Hello and welcome to another broadcast of Truth Be Told, where we believe an experience becomes truth. I'm your host, Tony Sweet, and joining me now, in absence of Captain Ron, we have the world-renowned psychic Colby Rebel, and world-renowned astrologer, Rachel Lang. Today, we talk about, did Eisenhower really have a treaty with the Greys? Did reptilian influence ex-Nazis infiltrated the U.S. government? And did the reptilians create an alien-human hybrid under their control to replace the human population? Well, it's going to be a great show because we have author Len Kasten talking about his book, Alien World Order, The Reptilian Plan to Divide and Conquer the Human Race. For over 30 years, Len Kasten has been involved in UFO and ET-related research. He has written over 60 published articles for Atlantis Rising magazine. He is a former member of the National Investigations Committee of Aerial Phenomena and the Mutual UFO Network. His first book, The Secret History of Extraterrestrials, was published in November 2010. His second book, Secret Journey to Planet Serpo, was published in 2013. So you can tell he has a passion for the research and the journey that he's going to take us on today. So please welcome to Truth Be Told, where we believe an experience becomes truth, author of the book Alien World Order, The Reptilian Plan to Divide and Conquer the Human Race. Please welcome Len Kasten. Oh, Len, welcome to Truth Be Told. How you doing, sir?
Doing good, Tony. Thanks for that introduction.
Of course. Well deserved. And I have the lovely ladies, Rachel Lang and psychic Colby Rebel in the house. And I know this is going to be a great show because we're all interested in the phenomenon of the UFO and aliens and extraterrestrials. So Len's going to be able to answer some of those questions for us today. So Len, let's start with everybody that I have on the show and that we're working with UFOs. Usually they have a story. They have a story that gets them they're intrigued. When I was a kid, I saw a UFO with my family. Probably it was around 1978. I was about 8 years old in Kansas. So could you tell us, did you ever have an encounter with a UFO that really got your intrigue going?
I did indeed. It didn't happen until I was in the Air Force when I was in my 20s. And that was quite a while back, actually. Anyway, I didn't know what a UFO was when I was in the Air Force. I was in pilot training for a while. Then I just reverted back to regular status. And what happened was when I was asleep in my room one night, close to when I was going to be leaving the Air Force, I woke up suddenly at 3 o'clock in the morning in my barracks room and ran to the window, which was a very unusual thing for me to do. Seldom wake up at 3 in the morning. And no sooner did I do that than I saw this thing go flashing by at about a little above eye level, glowing green and gold phosphorescence, and it was really moving out over the Gulf of Mexico. And I just put my nose up against the window. Something motivated me to do that and watch it till it disappeared out over the Gulf of Mexico. And my roommate did not stir. He stayed asleep. And so I just went back to sleep, and the next morning I'd forgotten all about it, except the tower operators came in. This was at Eglin Air Force Base, by the way, in Florida. And they reported that they had 4 UFOs over the runway that night.
Oh, wow.
And I said, what's a UFO? I had no idea what a UFO was. And they said, well, it's an unidentified flying object. I said, well, I think I saw one coming from the runway. They said, well, you should report that to the UFO office. I said, there's a UFO office. So I did. I went over there and I found it, and there was a captain sitting there, and he had about a 10-page questionnaire for me.
10-page?
This was all part of Project Blue Book.
Oh,
this
okay.
goes back to Project Blue Book.
Right.
He was a representative for Project Blue Book.
For those listeners who don't know what Project Blue Book is, could you explain a little bit about what that is?
That's perfect, yeah.
It was a government program supposedly to investigate unidentified flying objects. And it was completely Air Force, almost entirely Air Force. So the Air Force had a representative at all the major Air Force bases where they recorded incidents and they recorded examples of UFO appearances. And so that's why it was a captain sitting there. It was not an airman. In any case, he asked me when I first saw it and where I saw it disappear. And I told him, and from that he calculated the approximate speed, and it came out to something like, 6,000 miles an hour. He said
6,000.
something like that, because
That's
it
pretty
really
fast.
zipped by. And he said, that checks. And I looked at him like he was crazy. I said, checks with what? And he said, never mind. And so that was the end of it. I did my duty. I reported the incident and went back to my barracks. And the next day I got very sick, very sick. I had flu-like symptoms to the point where, I mean, I was quite young then. I was in good shape. However, it put me in the hospital. And I was in the base hospital for 3 days. And all I wanted was grapefruit juice. That's all I could think about was grapefruit juice. Evidently needed
doesn't?
vitamin C. I needed a lot of vitamin C. And they kept it coming, and I survived. And about a week later, I was released from the Air Force. So that's how it all started.
Wait,
But
released
most
from
of that, whatever happened to me with that craft, I'm quite certain now, after talking to many people that I've met, that I was taken up into the craft. And when I woke up in my bed at 3 o'clock, they had just probably bounced me back to my bed, and that's why I ran to the window. So it all makes sense. It all fits.
And were you released from the Air Force by choice, or was that something?
No, my enlistment was up.
Oh, okay. I was trying to dig and see if there was something
No,
even
right.
deeper.
Yeah.
This all happened just about a week before I was to be released.
Oh, wow.
okay.
That's crazy. So I do have a question about that because a lot of times when people in the military that see a UFO, what year was this again?
This was in the 60s.
60s. So I would think they would say, don't say anything, don't talk about this, because I've heard about other military people that said that when they saw a UFO or came and encountered with a UFO, were told not to talk about it at all. Was that the case or no?
No, that wasn't. I didn't say that to me at all. They were more interested in getting information from me. That's all they really wanted. Because they were keeping records of all the appearances of the UFOs over Eglin Air Force Base. And Eglin was an experimental Air Force base, so there was a lot of stuff going on there, a lot of strange stuff going on there, and they wanted to make sure that they were keeping records of everything that happened.
Right. And when you said 10 pages, you can definitely tell they've been doing this a while to have 10 pages of questionnaire.
Absolutely, yeah.
Was there anything on the questionnaire that was kind of seemed out of place or something that seemed a little strange when they asked about it?
Well, I just assumed he knew what he was doing. I didn't really make any note of it. No, I didn't, except for the speed that he calculated, which seemed incredible. And to this day, I don't think they're talking about UFOs that go that fast. But in any case, he didn't think it was unusual.
All right. So once you left, go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So after you were discharged and you were done, did this experience just stay with you? Were you just like kind of saying, hey, I need to write about this? Like, what was the next step for you?
I forgot all about it.
Really?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't pay any attention to it at all. So whatever happened to me on that craft, it was buried deep into my subconscious, and it did come out only about 2 years later. Because 2 years later, I was working for IBM in Washington, D.C., and I joined a UFO group. And at that time, it was unusual to be doing that.
I'm sure.
So something motivated, something percolated up from my subconscious, and I grabbed onto it, and I became involved with NICAP in Washington.
Well, one thing that stood out when you just said it, you said that on that craft. Now, you just saw it. You didn't get taken up into
Well, he thinks he did.
Oh, so you thought you were actually taking what do they call them?
Abducted?
Abducted, yes.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say abducted. I wouldn't use that word. I would say taken up into the craft. It seems pretty obvious now that that's what happened.
Do you have memories of this, or?
Well, I wouldn't have gotten involved in all this stuff if that hadn't made a deep impression on my subconscious. Because really, I did it at a time when everybody thought the UFO people were crazy. Were wearing little aluminum hats and everything. Right. But I persisted, and that means that something happened to me on the craft. And now at this point, I'm positive about that, even though I have not ever been hypnotized.
Now, one thing, I've had Linda Moulton Howe on my show multiple times, and I love her, and she talks a lot about abductions and talking to many abductees. Now, have you ever had any opportunities to talk to other abductees where that brought back memories, or said it felt like so familiar to you that it seemed like that was very similar to what you went through?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I attach such significance to the fact that I got sick,
Mm.
because that's a common phenomenon with abductees and with people that get taken up into the craft. And so that convinced me that really that's where I was. I was taken up there. But I have no knowledge of what transpired in that. But whatever it was, it made a deep impression on me.
Well, this is back in the 60s when you got out of the Air Force and you said you joined a local UFO kind of group. But you didn't write your first book until 2010.
Yeah, no, that's right. I didn't write anything for a long time. But I did have background in literature and liberal arts at Cornell, and so I had some interest in writing.
Right.
However, no, I didn't. I was in the computer. My career, I became a software specialist for IBM.
Well, I mean, I find that fascinating. That's what almost 40 years difference in between. So, in those 40 years, and you were working your 9-to-5 job, doing your just doing your daily. Was there another incident, or was there something else that came into your life that that really kind of brought these experiences back to the surface that really pushed you into writing again?
Absolutely. I was meeting people all the time, and I started to hang out with people that had experiences. I was living in Hartford, Connecticut for a long period of time, and I met a lot of abductees, including famous one, Betty Ann Luca.
Oh, yes.
Betty Luca and John White and others. And many of them had missing time experiences, and I began to see the commonality, and I began to understand that I was in it up to my eyeballs at that point.
So what this book, Alien World Order, just seems fascinating. Was there a particular inspiration, or was it a compilation of experiences and meeting people that drove you to write the book?
Well, there was always some missing information. I knew something was missing. I mean, we can't just continue to talk about lights in the sky, because that's ridiculous. So I knew we were dealing with extraterrestrials. I was quite convinced of that.
Mm-hmm.
And up until the time that I wrote Secret Journey to Planet Serpo, I took the Air Force explanations as utter truth, and that they were strangers to our solar system, and we were the natives here, and so forth and so on. But also something else was bothering me. I began to understand that we were being controlled. Once I understood that we were all being controlled, the entire human race, and that came upon me slowly. And then when David Icke broke the ground, then I realized I began to put two and two together, started to do the research, and I started to realize what was going on. It became very clear to me at that point.
And who is doing the controlling? Was there a specific group of aliens, or was there what did you find in some of your research?
Yeah, the reptilians, the reptilians and the Greys.
Okay, so for
our
our naive listeners out there, right, are ones that are not familiar with the races. Can you explain a little bit about this reptilian race and the impact and the control that it does have over the human race?
Okay, now have any of you read my book yet?
I started reading. I didn't finish it, but I know the lady said they didn't have an opportunity to read it. So
okay, it's all right. It's a big book, so I understand.
Yeah, it's pretty thick.
336 pages.
Right. And I originally suggested to the publisher that we break it up into two books, but he said no, put them together. So I did, and that means I had to cover a period from way back BC to modern day, and there's a lot of work involved in that. So, in any case, the reptilians. Story goes way back on this planet, way back, and so they were actually here before we were on this planet. But if you just want to talk about humans, of which we are members of the human race really was in this solar system long before the reptilians arrived, and they were living peacefully on two planets, Mars and one that we now know as Maldek, which was between Mars and Jupiter at that time. And they had spacefaring technology. They traded back and forth. They had agriculturally based economies, and they were very, very peaceful and very happy. And then the reptilians arrived, and everything started to change drastically. That's what happened. And but there was no inhabitants on this planet, Earth, at that time, just Mars and Maldek. That's the only location where the humans were living when the reptilians made their grand entrance.
And where did the reptilians come from? Which galaxy or which dimension?
They're from the star system Draco, Draco, about 300 light years away, I believe.
Well, in scripture and in tablets from around the world, that the Anunnaki were were some evidence, and in hieroglyphics in Egypt and certain other places around the world that have evidence. But when you learn this information, where do you get this information from? Because you're talking to us like there's evidence. So I would love to hear some of the places. If it's through scripture, through hieroglyphs. Could you tell us a little bit more about where you get your information from?
Well, of course, like everyone else, the news about the information about the reptilians started with David Icke in modern times. Are you familiar with David Icke? You know about his work?
Yeah, I know about his work. Yes.
Okay, so he was the first one to break the story about the reptilians that I know of. And that got me interested in it. However, he didn't have background on them. He just said they were here, and so we treated them as extraterrestrials, because I knew they were from the Draco star system and also from Orion, the Orion star systems.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't have much background on them other than the fact that they were brutal. They were brutal, sadistic, and domineering, and they were controlling the human race. They were controlling the group that we call the Illuminati,
right,
which are the humans that are doing their work for them here because they don't like to do it, and also the Greys.
And I've heard that through the man at I think it's the man at the Pentagon, Thor. You've heard about that?
Oh yeah. Somebody's writing a screenplay about that right now, I believe.
Yes, and
David Campobasso.
Yeah, he's been on my show. Very fascinating, and that was also where Thor, human-like, comes to the world or to America, lands outside of the D.C., meets with the president, and of course, we don't want all the cures for anything. We want the technology, and then, of course, the real government, the Illuminati, pretty much meet with them and pretty much say, we want your technology. Right. We don't want all this stuff. And so it sounds like, the Greys and the reptilians are the ones that don't have our best interest at heart.
And the Greys are another species of another alien species, or
hybrids. They're hybrids. They're crossbreeds between the reptilians and the Assyrian race. But see, the reptilians are very good at doing this, at doing any type of genetic modifications. They're experts in cloning. They're experts in all of that. They have been for thousands of years. But Campobasso also has a woman working with him named Tanya Maidenform. Have you met Tanya or talked to her?
I have not. No, I have not.
As I talked to Tanya, it became very clear that she was not from here. And I'm convinced that she's from another solar system, and she's helping him a lot. So I think he's getting some good help from a lot of people.
Now, have you ever met, besides the encounter in the ship itself, but the everyday people that you thought might have been a hybrid or another race?
Lately I have been meeting more and seeing more and more of them. I'm beginning to get to the point now where I can recognize them easily, especially the women.
Really?
The women are especially the females. The females are. It's very obvious to me now because I've become practiced at it. But we have to go back to Steven Spielberg's TV series called Taken to understand this. Spielberg doesn't do things in a vacuum. He knows what he's talking about, and in the story Taken, have any of you seen that on TV?
I have not.
No, I haven't.
I know of it, but I don't know if I've seen
it. Is it newer?
No, it's about 15 years old.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to check it out.
It's a story about a woman living alone who an extraterrestrial comes to her house. He looks human, but he's really not. And they have an affair, and from that affair is born a child that is very special, has tremendous paranormal powers. And in fact, she is so special that the military took a great interest in her and tried to get her as a sort of a freak and keep her under their control. And that was the whole story. Spielberg wove the whole story around that conflict. And eventually, the aliens who were watching over the little girl for the entire time, realized that if they didn't come and get her, she was going to become a laboratory rat for the human race. And so they took her back to either the ship itself or another planet. That was how it ended. But, there was a lot of information in that series, and I would recommend it highly for anybody that hasn't seen it yet.
Which is funny. What you just described sound like E.T.
Yeah.
He was like,
similar.
if he wouldn't have got in the ship, they would have used him as an experiment. Yeah, that was like that. But he didn't.
Interestingly enough, the little girl at that time was Dakota Fanning.
Yeah.
And she went on to become a very, very well-known actress.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I do remember. I remember the series. I kind of remember it being on, but I just can't remember, watching it.
If you can get your hands on a video of it, you should watch it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So go ahead.
Well, you go around and do you do lectures on this, and you do you teach the reptilian race and help people understand what's going on? What part are you playing in kind of like getting that truth out there?
My forte, if you want to call it that, my strength is simply in connecting dots, because after 30 years at this, I've got a lot of dots to connect. Okay, I've known a lot of people. I've been involved with a lot of people that have put on conventions and conferences. John White, you may have heard of John White in Connecticut, and many others. And I've known a lot of people who have been abducted. Over the years, I've put together a lot of information, and then when the reptilian story broke, I realized that was the missing piece. Oh. I realized it because I'd always known that we were being controlled. I just didn't understand how or by who.
Right.
And that was the fact. That was the piece I needed.
Is there anything we can do to not be controlled, or do you have any suggestions for? I mean, is this happening right now? Are we still being controlled right now?
Absolutely. Yes, we are. In fact, we're at a stalemate right at the moment because the reptilians are getting very close to taking over completely. Right now, they have to stay underground, which is where they live, but they're getting bolder and bolder on the surface world.
Have you
and
ever?
Of course, they run the whole show. They run the media. They run the banks. They run Hollywood. Everything through the Illuminati.
Have you ever met anyone? So we were talking about your ability to kind of detect an alien, especially women, you can look and you can tell. Have you ever come across someone that claimed to have been abducted or claimed to have had an experience, but you just know they didn't? Like, did the opposite happen? Have you met anybody like that?
No, actually, the people that have told me they were abducted, I was very, very, very convinced that they were telling the truth. And I could tell they were.
Okay.
I had a very good friend in Connecticut that had many episodes of missing time, and he knew that was happening, and I knew what was happening. It was very clear to me.
So when you say when you look at especially women, is there anything that you see instantly that will determine that they're of a different race?
Winged eyeliner.
Yeah, winged eyeliner.
I knew there was something special about you.
Well, the biggest clue are the eyes. The eyes are huge. And so when you see a girl or a woman with huge eyes, that's the first clue, because most human eyes are not that large. And we know that the aliens have very large eyes. Some of them, the Greys, have what we call wraparound eyes.
Wraparound eyes?
Yeah, they almost go around to the side of the head. They're so large.
Wow. And are these like specific, like in terms of human races? Like, I mean, are there specific like coloring or anything is there a commonality? Like, for example, are they African Americans? Are they Asians? Are they do they?
Well, if you saw Spielberg's series, one of the key things about that was the fact that the aliens decide after the child is born whether it's acceptable in human society. If it's not, they take it back. If it is, then it becomes acceptable and it starts to get involved in human activities. So if they pass and they look human and they can act human, then they stay here. Otherwise, they take them out. They don't want them to be put through all the stress of living here.
Well, I'm a big history buff. And my family, my seventh great grandfather was one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. So I'm big on this. So, but George Washington, our first president, warned of the Illuminati, and I'm curious that why didn't the reptilians pretty much take it over way before we got our own technology to where we even thought about fighting back? Or was that just is that just laughable that we think we could fight back? So why wouldn't they have taken over way before? What were they waiting for?
Well, when you have to define taken over in this context, because they have taken over. Right. They really run the human race. I mean, they control the human race. They've kept us pinned down to this planet. They will not let us travel to the stars, which we can do already. Ben Rich said, anything you can imagine, we can already do. They don't want us leaving the solar system and getting help from our other human brothers out there, of which there are many. Okay. The Pleiadians, the Andromedans, they are also human as we are. So we're being controlled completely. I mean, we're all enslaved to debt, and that's how they do it. That's how the reptilians do it. Wherever they go in the galaxy, and they control now about 21 star systems that we know of in their empire. They always put in a money system, and they always manage to keep the native population in debt. That's how they operate, and that's exactly what we are. How can anyone argue with that?
Well, the Anunnaki supposedly brought us here to pretty much be their slaves and mine, gold and minerals and the things that they needed for their solar system. So, what was the purpose again of keeping us even alive today? If they don't want us to travel, were we slaves to them to, get them material or resources? I mean, what was the reason to keep us alive to this day?
Well, they treat us like they farm us. Okay? They use our energy for one thing, especially fear, and they create fearful energies in the human race, and then they thrive on it. They love our fearful energies, and they keep us in fear through war, depression, whatever. They control all that because they control the banks. So the question then becomes, what more do they need to do to take over? They don't have to take over. They already run the whole show.
But why do they need us then? I think that's what we're trying to figure out. Then why would they need us?
Well, for one thing, they eat human flesh.
Oh.
They drink human blood. All the vampire stories that we read about we're all talking about reptilians, basically.
Wow. Okay. That makes sense.
So they take thousands of humans down into their underground empire constantly, missing children, missing people. Read David Paulides' book, Missing 411. You get a taste of that.
Well, Len, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break. We got to do a commercial here. This is very interesting stuff. I know people are out there learning all about your book, Alien World Order, and we're so fascinated with what you've put together for us today. And we're going to come back with some more questions, and I hope everybody sticks around. So this is Truth Be Told. I'm Tony Sweet. We have Psychic Colby here. We have Rachel Lang, and on the phone we have Len Kasten. So don't go anywhere. Truth Be Told. Be right back. Do you suffer from anxiety, from depression, maybe even chronic pain? Well, listen up. Truth Be Told is going to tell you about a breakthrough program built on over 100 years of therapies used in America's returning veterans to help you successfully overcome PTSD, anxiety attacks, pain, and depression. The secret proven in study after study. Music therapy. The effects of music are nothing short of amazing. From strokes to PTSD, music has been shown to improve the quality of life. Now, one of the latest music therapy programs being used in America's veteran hospitals can be yours to experience for free, at home, and to help your own anxiety attacks, pain, and depression. Or just relax after a hard day. It's called Whole Tones. It takes music therapy to a new level. This revolutionary program makes use of specifically designed frequencies that have been shown to stimulate your body's natural healing power down to a cellular level. If it works for battle-scarred vets, can it work for you? Well, experience it for yourself for free at sweetwholetones.com. Like Tony Sweet, that's SWEET. Go to sweetwholetones.com. Now enjoy the show.
United States Pharmacopoeia, USP, sets the standard for most food supplements and are used in over 95% of all vitamin and mineral supplements in the world. The problem is that these products have never appeared in any living tissue. They're created in laboratories and are not recognizable to the body's metabolism. Grown by Nature products are different because they use renatured ingredients, proprietary blends of essential vitamins and minerals, with cofactors of proteins, lipids, and complex carbohydrates. Over 50 studies have been conducted on renatured nutrients, and over 20 have been published in peer-reviewed journals proclaiming their superiority. As a result, Grown by Nature vitamins and supplements are now recognized as simply the best available. Call 877-817-9829. That's 877-817-9829 and order your Grown by Nature products today. We are what we eat, and since we are of nature, we should eat foods in their natural form. Only Grown by Nature offers a full line of renatured nutrients. Call 877-817-9829. That's 877-817-9829 because not all products are grown by nature, but they should be.
All right, we're back. This is Truth Be Told, where we believe an experience becomes truth, and we are having a great experience today. We have Psychic Rebel Colby here. We have Rachel Lang, astrologer extraordinaire, and we have the amazing author Len Kasten. He wrote the book called Alien World Order. I keep saying, want to say Republican, but the reptilian plan to divide and conquer the human race. And Len, this is it's very fascinating what you've put together because, like I said, I'm a big history buff. And one thing that you talked about was ex-Nazi influence. I remember reading about that Hitler was a huge fan of trying to find alien technology. Do you have any information about how did the reptilians work with Hitler, or was he just seeking out the technology of what they had? Do you know?
Yeah, no, they worked together.
Did they really?
Yes, of course. They worked together. The reptilians were behind Hitler eventually. Not in the early stages, not in the 20s, but in the 30s. Yes, from the 30s on. And that is the complete explanation of why Hitler would want to create a colony in Antarctica.
Yeah.
In 1938.
I remember that.
1 year before World War II, to have expended all that energy and all those resources, sending people way across the Atlantic to create a colony under the ice seems ridiculous right now when we think about it. The only explanation was that he was working with the reptilians because they were already there.
Now, after the World War, the U.S. did the U.S. take over that position of taking that, I guess, that location over?
No, it became an international continent.
Oh, okay.
What happened was Admiral Byrd put together a task force, including 4,800 Marines, about 13 ships, and that they went down to Antarctica. That was called Project High Jump, and it was an international fleet actually. And the purpose of that was to destroy the Nazi base, which at that point we knew was there, and he didn't succeed.
And how did the reptilians influence ex-Nazis that infiltrated the U.S. government? I was fascinated about that line.
Well, we know that the Nazis had an advantage in getting into our system because they knew a lot about the Russians. They had a lot of information about the Russians that we wanted because the Cold War was just starting.
Right.
So that's why we allowed them into our intelligence network, particularly people like Galen, who was the key to the whole thing. And he became the great spy master, and also we had people on this side like Alan Dulles, who had sympathies for the Nazis to begin with. He was the one that basically allowed it to come in, and that became a Project Paperclip, which many people know about.
Now, the reptilians, I can't really compare them to the human race, but just as in human race, they're, like I'm just going to say, I'm going to use politics. Democrats, Republicans. There's always the far right, the far left, and then those few that are in the middle. You have the middle of the road Democrats and the middle of the road Republicans. Are the reptilians, has there ever been a few that says, you know what, I don't agree with my fellow reptilians and I would like to help the human race? Have you heard of that before?
I haven't, and I'll tell you why. Because the reptilian consciousness is not individual like ours is. They have what they call a group consciousness. So they pretty much, just like the Nazi soldiers, just like the German soldiers in World War II, they just follow orders, basically. And that's exactly the way they are. So it's the leaders that make the decisions. And there's very little independent thought and independent calculations among the rank and file reptilians.
So is there any way that humans, with our sense of autonomy, with our ability to have free will, to make choices, is there any way that we could somehow organize and either fight back or
are
do
we just
something?
doomed?
Yeah.
I mean, is your belief system that the human race is just doomed and there's just no point?
Not at all. Not at all. Matter of fact, if you read the very last appendix in my book, it's called "The Path to Victory." And it was written by an extraterrestrial. It was written by an extraterrestrial named Kyla, who was a human extraterrestrial from Procyon. And he gives you the whole path to how to defeat the reptilians in that one appendix. So it has to do with consciousness. It's all about consciousness. They've kept us dumbed down for so long that we cannot think highly about any subject at all. So if we can just raise our consciousness to a certain level as a race, the game is over. They no longer will have any influence over us anymore after that. That's where we're at right now.
But don't you think that's happening? I mean, I see that
I think
in the
it is. It is happening. Yes, I see signs of it happening, and I'm really encouraged. And we got people like David Wilcock and Corey Good that are helping us understand what's going on, and that's tremendous. That's tremendous. But everybody has to do it themselves, except at some point, I think the 100th monkey phenomena will take over, and it will spread globally. And when that happens, then they can't control us anymore after that.
That's a good, for the people out there, that's an encouragement.
Yes, exactly.
so don't walk away from this show feeling doom and gloom. So you actually have an opportunity. And I think people like yourself and people like us here in the studio that we are raising the bar and the consciousness, because the more knowledge you have, the better you can walk away with a positive reaction.
Well, also I think these kinds of conversations stretch our belief systems, because there are so many people who don't believe in aliens, or they believe that we are alone here in the universe. And so even having these conversations would give someone pause and say, what do I really believe? And maybe even seek some truth or seek some awareness. Well,
even the Pope, in the last year or two mentioned something about could be life outside of our universe. When you heard something like that, because the churches, I'm assuming, are probably run as much by the reptilians as the banks. Am I right, or am I wrong?
You're right. I have a whole section in my book on the origins of the Catholic Church from Constantine on, and how all that happened.
So when you hear the current Pope say something about maybe life outside of our universe, wouldn't you think the church would not want people to believe that there is life out there? Or do you think he might be a true human that is really fighting for the cause of saving mankind?
I think the church knows all about the ETs.
Oh, I think
absolutely, they know all about it. They have a huge telescope in Arizona called Mormon Mountain, one of the most sophisticated telescopes, and they're watching for any activity that they think of approaching aliens. So the Pope knows what's going on. Let's keep in mind that the Pope is a Jesuit. The Jesuits are the scholars.
Mm-hmm.
The Jesuits are the ones that have done all the research. They know the story. Mm-hmm. And so they're expecting the aliens to take over completely, and they're just getting ready. I think they're just getting ready for that event.
No, well, there's 7 billion, or probably close to 8 billion now, people on the Earth. What are we dealing with? Are we dealing with the same amount of numbers with the reptilians, or do they not multiply as fast as the human race has done?
No, they're a small number compared to us. Probably perhaps in the hundreds of thousands at the most. However, they can get in and out of this planet. They can get on and off this planet at will. They have the technology. They've had spacefaring technology for thousands of years. That's how they've conquered all these other star systems. So they may live underground, but they do have spacefaring technology. They go in and out. And according to Alex Collier and others, they're expecting a large contingent to arrive from Draco sometime soon. So that would be catastrophic as far as we're concerned. So there are things like that can happen. Yeah. Even though they are small in population, they have tremendous technology way ahead of us. And when you read that appendix in my book, he says the same thing, that the only way we can fight them at the present time is by expanding our consciousness.
Does this relate, like the aliens coming to Earth, are you familiar with the concept of Walkins?
Yeah, I am familiar with that.
Is that something that the reptilians do? Do they come as walk-ins?
They can, because they live in the fourth dimension. They really do not exist in the third dimension as we do. And that's why they're able to influence us so easily, because they influence us through the dreamscape and through the astral realm, the lower astral. The fourth dimension is really another term for the astral realm, the lower astral. And they are masters there. They control that whole realm, actually. So if a person has a weak will or a soul who's not convinced, totally human, they can eject that person from his body and take over. That can happen.
But can good ones come too? Are there equally as many really, aliens who want to save the world as there are ones that want to destroy it?
Absolutely. I mean, the Pleiadians are our friends. The Andromedans are our friends. There are humans all over the galaxy. The human race really originated in the star system Lyra, and they were peaceful humans on several of the planets in Lyra until the reptilians attacked that star system. That was the first confrontation between humans and reptilians in this galaxy, and the reptilians slaughtered 50 million and destroyed 3 planets. And that was the beginning of what we call now the Federation, because the humans in Lyra scattered throughout the galaxy, and they eventually formed what we call the Federation. And that's what we have now, and that's the group that is helping us, really. But they can't do it for us.
Well, I remember watching, I don't know if it was Ancient Aliens or another program about, I think it was in ancient India, where there was evidence of actually a nuclear blast. Was that maybe, 2 species, maybe the reptilians and another species that were battling to, either for the planet or to save the planet, or do you know anything about that?
Yeah, that would be the human race that we now call the pre-Adamic before we, the Homo sapiens were created. We, the Homo sapiens sapien, are really only about 40,000 years old. There was another human race that came here first. As I mentioned before,
Right.
they populated Mars and they populated Maldek. And then the Federation brought a group here from the Pleiades called the Atlans, Atlans, to settle here, and they settled on the continent that became known as Atlantis.
Wow.
And Atlantis
Yeah.
got into constant warfare with the reptilians. And that's a whole nother story. But we, the human race that we call the human race, we're recent, we're new guys on the block. We're nothing like the Atlanteans. The Atlanteans were an incredible race of humans.
How does this this is a question from one of our listeners. How do aliens play into our concept of the afterlife? And the listener also wants to know if you believe in an afterlife.
Well, if you read my book, there's a section in my book where we talk about the fact that most people who have had near-death experiences report walking through a tunnel, and they see a bright light at the end of the tunnel. Now, some believe that the aliens have control over that whole system, and all they're doing is recycling us back into the human race to do work for them, because we all work for them. All of our efforts, really, no matter what kind of a job you're in, works for them, and so that's where the whole concept of reincarnation, a lot of people think, originated, because we don't have to be recycled like that. We could go on to newer and better systems. So they keep us here for that reason. And as far as the afterlife is concerned, there's no question whatever that people who are deceased are living in what we now call the fourth dimension. All the people who are involved with afterlife research have pretty much convinced us and convinced me that if you can reach a certain level in the fourth dimension, you're above the fray, and you don't necessarily have to be reincarnated. But if you come into the lower dimensions, which the aliens control, the reptilians control the lower astral, and you get recycled back into a physical body, the chances are you're just going to keep working for them.
Makes sense. It makes sense. Well, we only have about 3 minutes left. I want to ask this question because we've talked about Illuminati many times on the show and the show today. And what are some of the major Illuminati organizations and groups out there that, us people that are very interested in this, could you mention a few names of?
Well, you mentioned George Washington earlier, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
What do you know about George Washington's connection with the Illuminati?
Well, all I know is he warned of the Illuminati, so I don't know the connection to it, other than the Masons. I don't know if I know at the time the Masonic Lodge or the Masons weren't connected to the Illuminati, but I've heard that the Illuminati infiltrated the Masons. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah,
or not.
I agree with that. Yes, that's exactly what happened. At the time of Washington, I think they had already done that to a large extent. But the French Masons were different, and Lafayette and others who helped us get started in this country. The whole concept of liberty and enlightenment was a non-Illuminati concept, and we have our friends in the galaxy to thank for that, because what we call the Enlightenment was really something that they managed. That they stage managed.
Well, Len, I have to say this was very fascinating. I really enjoyed having you on the show. This is some great information, stuff that I've not thought about, heard about, and we're going to walk away thinking about this. I'm definitely going to finish the book, and it's called Alien World Order: The Reptilian Plan to Divide and Conquer the Human Race. And do people go to your website, et-secret? What is it? Secret.
And it's on Amazon.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely
read
on
my
Amazon.
I can't
the
read
book,
my writing.
Get the book on Amazon, right?
And are you
Get the
going
book
to
on Amazon.
are you going to be having any lectures coming up that people might be able to attend?
Well, I'll tell you what I would like to do. I would like to get into the Conscious Life Expo in LA next year, and because I think they are really doing a good job over there.
Yeah, we
So-
always stream live from there, so yeah, hopefully I'll get to see you next year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
like I said, go to et-secrethistory.net. I can finally read my writing. So, and you can check out a lot of information. Go on Amazon, pick up all his books, not just the new one, but there's other books that he has. And again, please come back and see us again. And we hope you have an amazing weekend. And come back and see us.
Thanks, Tony. I've enjoyed it.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right. Talk to you later.
Okay.
All right. Wow. What do you think, ladies, think about that?
It's interesting.
Yeah,
I mean,
very-
it's different.
It's a lot. You know, it's stuff information that I still need to digest. Just
Right.
because it's new. But like I said, these kinds of conversations stretch our ideas, stretch beliefs, cause us to question, and so I think it'll be interesting to read more about it.
And I think, when we always hear new information, especially when it's kind of gloomy and doomy, it actually does kind of put us on guard. And I think once you start thinking about it, that's when we, I'm the Sagittarius. I'm a seeker. I like to
Yeah.
I like to find out the truth. So, and that's why I started Truth Be Told. And this is, I think this is a great subject for anybody to look into. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, absolutely.
Believe it or not.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, we have these two ladies. We have a lot to talk about. We're going to talk everything, politics. We're going to talk fashion, doing nails, hair, whatever. Do you guys want to take any calls?
Sure, we can take some calls.
do
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, this episode is over, but we're going to start here back in about 10 minutes. So don't go anywhere. Truth Be Told. Thank you so much for joining us. Go to truthbetoldwebtv.com. Check out our YouTube channel on, you can go to, I think it's Truth Be Told TV. It's over 1.1 million views now.
Wow.
11,000
All right.
subscribers. Thank you guys for doing
Wow.
that.
Yay.
And real quick before you go, Colby, where can people find you?
Oh, thank you. PsychicRebel.com and on social media, Psychic Rebel.
Perfect. And Miss Rachel?
Blissenup.com and on social media, Rachel Lang 11.
Perfect. All right. We're going to be right back, so don't go anywhere.